Hi friends, Bee here from the Match Factory. I'm here on Text Tuesday to discuss Magic Loop socks and 2 socks at once on Magic Loop. These socks, if you can believe it, I started last year. Well, I guess it was this year, 2020, March 2020, when we were having a 3-store competition. It was Sock Madness, March Madness, and these socks were started toe up on DPNs. You can see them here. And the goal was to be able to use these in a class. Unfortunately, those classes were canceled because of COVID. So, you know what? I'm not going to let them sit any longer. I'm going to finish these, and when we can book classes again, I'll start fresh. This beautiful yarn is from Itchel. It's an Australian dyer. We did have some in the store at that point. If you have some of this yarn, you're lucky. It was a limited edition fundraiser for the Australian bushfires, and we did have a little bit of it in store. It's sold out right now, so I'm sorry you can't get any more of this. It is a variegated yarn, but look what it's doing. It's pooling in these beautiful stripes. So your mileage may vary, and you know what? Mine may quit pooling after I put it on a different kind of needle because my tension is going to be slightly different. So what I've done is I have transferred, instead of on 3 needles in a triangle, which is how I like to knit on my DPNs, I have the socks divided front and back on 2 needles with my beginning of the row on the side, as opposed to this needle was in here in a triangle. Then what you do, through the magic of television, you transfer it onto, I have the ChiaoYu interchangeables, these fabulous, gorgeous needles. I just slid them over. So instead of DPNs like this, I now have my long circular like this. And out here is this long extra cable. You can see I joined a couple cables to get some extra length. See how I've got that going on? So what you do in order to knit this is take your needle from the back, pull it out, bring it around to the beginning of your work, and knit here. So now I'm knitting on the front of the work, just like this, and I'm knitting across. Oops. Alright, these look pretty big. I think these are going to end up being a gift for somebody because they certainly are not going to fit me. I can't even remember what my stitch count is. I'll have to figure that out when I go to do a heel. But I am going to do an afterthought heel, so it doesn't really matter. I can tuck it in wherever it needs to go. Alright, so we're knitting across the front half of our stitches, and you can see the cable is living on the back half, and I have these 2 loops on either side. Pretty straightforward, right? And these lovely flexible cables from ChiaoYu are just fantastic because they just go where you want them to go. Okay, so I have knit across the front half of my stitches. I'm going to turn my work, so my working yarn's to the back, and then you do this slide with your needles. So your cable, you pull the cable so that the front needle tip comes into your stitches ready to go, and your back needle pulls out and turns to come over to start to knit. So I have an extra cable here, and I have a loop of cable here, and I'm knitting across what when I started was the back half of my stitches. So we're just going to knit across here. So I'm just finishing knitting across the back half of my needles. One more. All right, so then you turn your work. Your working yarn is now on the back needle, the back half of the row, and I'm going to slide my cable up, and this needle tip slides out and comes around to join right here for knitting. So you just keep doing that. You do that around and around. Now this sock in particular, I am going to knit a great big long tube, and then I'm going to cut the heel in wherever I want it to go, which will work really well because I actually don't know who these are going to be for, so I'll be able to custom fit that sock to whoever needs it. Now I'll be back in just 2 seconds with another little hint. Okay friends, I'm back. I did that off camera because you don't need to sit around and watch me just slide stitches. There's nothing more boring. So in order to take the magic loop technique that we were just looking at and turn it into 2 socks at once, what I've done is just slide the second sock onto those needle tips right beside the first sock. So this is the sock we were just working on. Our working yarn's coming off the back of the needle. Now we have the second sock lined up with our working yarn off the back needle. Okay, so what we're going to do to knit these guys, same concept. You take your back needle tip, pardon me, pull it out and join to the front, and we're going to knit across here. This is why some teachers, when they teach, they do little micro things or baby things, so you don't have to sit around while I go across. I think it's 36 stitches. I think I did 72 when I cast this on, which is huge. I don't know why I made them so big. So I'm knitting across the front of the sock that I just slid onto those needle tips. All right, end of my row, end of my sock rather, but my row continues because here's my second sock. So that needle tip just follows its way into the second sock. I'm going to scooch this cable a little bit so we don't have a bunch in the way. And I drop the yarn from my first sock and pick up the yarn from the second sock. So you don't want to take this yarn and join it over here because then we've joined our 2 socks together. But we take the needle tip, bridge that gap, and this is the working yarn from the back of the second sock. And you just knit across here. So this way you can make 2 perfectly matched socks by working across both of them. Oh, you know what I just realized is I'm sitting here with my mask on. I hope you can hear me okay. There, let me get rid of that. Does that sound any better? There was a customer in the store in between there, so I had my mask on. Okay, so line things up. We're just knitting across the front of the second sock on our needle. Just like this, almost there, like watching paint dry. I'm sure it's stimulating. Oops, got a little bit of a knot happening in my yarn. There we go. Okay, so I've knit across the front of 2 stitches, or 2 socks, pardon me. I'm going to turn my work. This needle tip, this guy needs to slide up to join in here. And this one is going to slide out to join it. And then I'm going to be knitting right here. The yarn from the sock that it's attached to, and my second sock is hanging out right here beside it. So you just keep going around and around, knit the front and the 2 fronts, 2 backs, 2 fronts, 2 backs, around and around. You can do a regular, like a heel flap like this. You can do whatever style of heel you like. I am going to cut a heel in afterwards. I've got this great mini left over from another project, so I'm going to use that. I think the color is fabulous, but you can do whatever you like. So this is a single sock with magic loop, or you can add the second one and have 2 socks with magic loop. Isn't that great? We're here. We're here at the Match Factory. Call anytime, 647-5899. We're available on Facebook. We're the Match Factory LYS, which stands for Local Yarn Shop, or we're the matchfactory.ca. Call anytime. Bye.